Episode 41 of Strange Brow Radio. I'm your host, Tobe Johnson. You have caught us less than 12 hours after getting back from Port Townsend, Washington for our live event, something we called Podcastle Live at the haunted Manresa Castle. It turns out it is haunted. We got some stories to talk about. Before we get into our guest, I want to thank you again for everyone that turned up. I mean, it was packed. We'll talk about it in a second. Thank you to our sponsor, first off, Feral by Aaron and Marcia K. Moore from CMR Studios. Marcia is a contributor from Ancient Aliens. You can check out her episode on Ancient Aliens. I believe it was last season. Just type in Marcia K. Moore or CMR Studios. And they are working, Feral by Aaron and Marcia K. Moore, on some interesting projects up ahead regarding these elongated skulls. And we're going to talk about the elongated skulls during this episode. We got a lot to get through, so we'll be right back. All right, as I said, we are freshly back from the Manresa Castle in Port Townsend, Washington, where we had our first live event in Washington State, something we called Podcastle Live, and we didn't really know what to expect as far as numbers because it was a free show, no RSVPing, and we did minimal promotion for this aside from Timothy Renner over at Strange Familiars running a commercial for us. Everything was just kind of left up to one or two social media sites. But it was a standing room only event, and we had incredible guests, and we're going to talk to at least two of those guests tonight. This will be a two-part podcast from our live event. Also to our patrons, if you're not part of Patreon, you won't be able to see the video we shot. We shot plenty of video, including some amazing stuff from after the show. It was a Saturday masquerade party. We did a Friday live event, and then if you stayed the night in one of the rooms, which you absolutely should do, because we're going to do this in the future starting in January, and I'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, we had a huge turnout. There had to be at least 300 or 400 people that showed up for this masquerade dance party at the castle that went till 4 in the morning. So we were a little bit groggy after the show, but it was worth doing, and I'm excited for 2020. But yeah, if you're a part of Patreon, then you'll be able to see these guests like we're going to have today. Ron Morehead talk about the elongated skulls, and Sarah Nash, who is a consultant for the LAPD, who actually worked at Manresa Castle, talk about some of the things she's seen there. And we had some people show up on stage from the crowd and tell their own personal encounter stories, and also Barb Shoop. So we have video that some people were in costume. I was halfway in costume. A little hard to do a podcast with a giant plastic mask on your face. So note to self, next year dress up like a Ghostbuster, because all you really need is a proton pack and a onesie. So, but there was incredible costumes, and those are all on Facebook underneath my name, Tobe Johnson, Tobe Johnson, and I'll put a bunch of stuff on the Strange Brow Radio Facebook page. But if you're not a member of Patreon, you can be. You can go on to www.patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio, and for $3 a month, you get an extra podcast and probably some video too. And then for $6 a month, we're doing some extended video, an extra podcast, and some in-the-field audio too monthly. So those are the beginning stages. And it was an awesome show. Thanks again to Cameron, the owner of the bar side of the castle, who took a chance on us and is happy to look forward in the future. In fact, we're going to do our large Sasquatch stylized Secrets of the Sasquatch event at the castle. We're working on that now, and that'll be probably sometime in July 2020. and I'll have advanced ticket sales coming up in January. Also, we have our Golden Flute voting that we need to put up also on the Strange Brow Radio Facebook page. And so, for every guest that was on the podcast, for every guest that was doing a live event in 2019, the public can now vote on their favorite speaker, and then they win our Golden Flute Award. So that little ditty's explained as well in this podcast of why we give that award out as well. Okay, so out of the gate, we have Ron Morehead and Sarah Nash, part one of a two-part series here. Strange Brow Radio podcast live at Manresa Castle.
All right, you can barely hear it, but that's our bumper music. It's in the foreground, the background of me talking. I don't know if this is going to work with a cape, but thanks for coming. Let me see if the levels are right here. There we go. Okay, perfect. Thanks for coming to the first podcast live at Manresa Castle. I appreciate you guys coming here. Let me take these off here. We're good. Awesome. So this is our first event here. I want to thank you all for coming here. Give yourself a round of applause for showing up on an awesome Friday. I've got new faces. We got a good show planned for you. Ron Morehead is here. Yay. Yeah. Sarah Nash, psychic medium Sarah Nash. Ow! With your crystal skull. What's this girl's name? Leah Rose has made an appearance here. I don't know what's going to happen with Leah. Barb Shoop, our infamous witch back here, is going to talk a little bit about her cloaking video. I've got that queued up. And then all of you folks, Darren Locke, our Time Lord over here, is going to be our theremin musical act for intermission. Yes. Yes. So enjoy yourself. We got plenty to drink. We got plenty of food. We got till a little bit after 11. So we're just going to truck right through. We'll probably take about a 15 or 20-minute intermission, though, because we're going to do two guests first off, and then we'll go from there. I've got a witch's hair in my mouth or something. Here it goes. Cool. What else do I want to tell you? All right. There's actually a podcast that you can get a hold of, and I got to get this witch's hair out of my mouth. Some kind of acrylic hair in my mouth. That might be yours. It might be. So, yeah, I've got a regular, if you want to grab a business card, they're back there on the bar. And it's a show that comes out every Monday. If you want to know a little bit about what's going on with the show, you can just look it up. It's Strange Brow Radio. It's on iTunes. It's on YouTube. It's pretty much on every social platform you want. And I think there's 40 episodes out. It's out every Monday. And then if we all have a good enough time here, maybe we can come back in 2020 and we'll do this, if not once a month, every other month. And it'll probably be on a Friday or Saturday night. So we'll see how things go. And there's also a Patreon page. If you like what you hear, it's all, crowdfunded. I do this all for the passion of the stories that I want to hear. And I want to hear all your stories, too. So if you can stick around, I'd love to hear some of those stories afterwards. But if not, you can just email me, grab my business card, and I'll have you on the show. And then we can talk privately about what you want to discuss, because we all have stories. Most of us do. You may think you don't, but typically there's always a story. So what am I looking for? Anything that's kind of fringy? What we're talking about tonight. Things like Sasquatch. Things like Ghost, and we got a lot to go over here. So anything off kilter fits us. But if you want to help out, there's a Patreon page, and there's links to that on the website itself. So you can check that out at Strange Brow Radio. And then there's a bunch of goodies back here. I'm a wood carver, not by trade. I just love doing it. So there's some Sasquatch wood carvings back there. I only brought 4 of them. They're $75 a piece. I usually sell them for $100. So if you want one of those, you can take one of those home with you. And then Ron, he's got books and CDs back there. If you've never heard Sasquatch talk, now's your chance. And you can ask them all about the Sierra Sounds. And then back there at Sarah Nash, she's got a full table full of goodies. I think you even got some like those Time Life books for sale. Did I see like the psychic Time Life? Are those for sale? I think they are. All right. No? Okay, well, she'll read them to you tonight. I don't know. There's good stuff over there. And then, there's birthdays going on. So if anybody want to stick around tomorrow, there's a big masquerade party. So everyone can stick around for that. A big costume party's coming up here. I think it's $10 to get in the castle. And this is supposedly a legit haunted castle, right? There's stories here. Not my stories. I haven't had anything happen, but there's certainly staff here that have had stories. The second and third floor, and then the diner downstairs in the basement, supposedly the hot zones. So if you want to stick around for that, the castle has a lot of history to it, and we'll be talking about that as well. So that's tomorrow, and I think you can pay at the door, $10. There's also, I think, still some rooms available. So just be conscientious drinkers tonight, and that's it. All right. Well, why don't we introduce our first guest? This next guest here, I'll tell you, is actually a resident of Port Townsend. A lot of people don't know that, but he owned like the Munster House down the street, one of the biggest 2-story, 3-story Victorian houses in Port Townsend. He's also more known for the Voices in the Wilderness, Quantum Bigfoot, and he has quite a story to tell when it comes to Sasquatch. I've heard the story before. I don't know if you guys have, but we can't not talk about Bigfoot tonight. But we also want to talk about some other things related to this castle and the house. So without further ado, all the way from Poulsbo Squim area, legendary Bigfooter Ron Morehead. Where are you at, Ron? I got to get this hair off here. All right, there we go. Let me start this. Come on up here, Ron. I got to start the camera.
By the way, it's Toby's birthday.
Oh, yeah, that's tomorrow.
I know, but you got to get me amplified.
All right, you get your hat on there. I'm going to check your levels and make sure you're good. Bring your microphone up. You can grab the whole unit and bring it up towards you.
I can do that.
All right. There you go, right there. Now, can you guys hear us out there? Yes? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me in the back. We're good? Okay, good.
Hear me too?
Nice.
No thumbs up.
All right, Ron. Well, I've heard your story before, and like I said, we didn't necessarily come here to talk specifically only about Bigfoot. We want to talk about the other things that have happened. And so give a little background to your story and how you, tell people a little bit about the Sierra Sounds, and then we'll go from there about your time here in Port Townsend.
First of all, I'd like to say I've spent a lot of time in this castle because we were looking for a home here in the 90s, and a lot of stories about this castle, ghost stories. And I have a personal experience here with that, which we can talk about later, I guess. But bought a home down here, which is also haunted. This whole town is haunted. I mean, as far as spooky people go. But anyway, I am responsible, I guess, for the Sierra Sounds, which were recorded in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California several years ago. And I've written books on it. We had the scientists to study the sounds, and cryptolinguists study the sounds, and scientists showed that the sounds, the vocalizations that we recorded in the Sierras, 8 miles into the wilderness, were spontaneous. They weren't manufactured. They weren't reproduced. They are real, and that's been scientifically studied by the University of Wyoming. And then years later, we had a cryptolinguist actually transcribe a language within these sounds. So those sounds are genuine. And that's what I do, run around and talk about those things. However, this is a ghost story, right?
Well, we want to hear part of that too, but people, is anybody not familiar with Ron's story? Raise your hand if you've never heard Ron's story, because I don't want to short sell you this. Has everybody kind of heard in the front row? Okay, so the important part, Ron, that I want you to go in a little more detail about is that not only did you have activity on the Sierras, but it's ongoing activity, and it's not just allocated to the high Sierras here. So if you're not familiar with what Sasquatch is and what's going on with this phenomenon, we're talking about a group of hybridized people types that are running around not only Pacific Northwest, but running around pretty much almost on every continent, and you had a chance to document. You're really the only person I know of that actually documented the longest set of vocals that turned out to be language.
Yeah, well, it went on for more than just a season. It went on for a few years up there in the Sierras.
Right.
And it was quite interesting, really. It was an interesting part of my life, anyway. But I interacted with them, and they were huge. They are huge. And there's a mystery behind them, though. And that mystery goes into hybridization, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe they are a type of people. I've said that for years and years. Now, finally, I think a lot of people are acknowledging that they're more like a people than they are just an animal out in the woods. So many researchers are looking for an animal out in the woods, some kind of an ape or something, and that's not what they are. I can tell you that. I've had first-hand experience with them. And anyway, it's...
Well, Ron, how long did it take you to figure out that they weren't just an ape?
Well, I don't know that I've still figured it out, but we're all still looking, because if we knew, we'd be able to sit here and tell you everything, but none of us really know. We're all researchers, and we're all trying to find just exactly what these creatures represent.
Right.
They represent something very alien, very different, and very elusive. Mm-hmm. A lot of people want to just put them in a relic hominid group like they evolved like humans did, but I think they may be something different, and that's because of what I've experienced up there. It's not just the interaction with them, it's the mysteries that went on at the camp, the lights, just in 2016. My wife's going like this back there. That means I'm not talking loud now.
There you
guys
go.
hear me back there?
Louder? All right. Enunciate a little bit more.
Anyway, in 2016, her and I were up there, and a strange thing happening. Usually nothing happens when a strange person goes up, and that was her first trip up there. And but this elongated light, which I just talked about in David Pilates, Missing 411, The Hunters, he filmed me up there last year.
And you've never taken anybody up to that camp before, so to
He's
bring
the
him
first.
was a big deal.
He was the first, yeah. I finally allowed someone to go up there and document the camp, and I'm glad I did, because it caught fire here just a short time after that.
Right.
But anyway, and he did a really good reproduction of this in the 411 movie that he just came out with. But it's an elongated light comes floating by our tent. Now,
Right.
We're 8 miles in the wilderness. I mean, it takes a lot to get there. It's a very imposing trip, a very, very remote area. And this elongated light comes floating by our tent about 40 feet by it. And we watched that thing for several seconds. It must have been close to a minute, really. And what do you do with something like that? I mean, it's really strange.
Right.
And other strange things have happened up there, too. But that was unusual. I've never seen anything like that. We've seen other types of light, but different things follow us around and stuff like that. But it all seems to be associated with the Bigfoot phenomenon. Mm-hmm. So for years now, I've been talking about the Bigfoot mystery. Just this last week, I spoke to 2 MUFON groups down in Southern California, and I'm associating that now. Now, since the Navy has acknowledged that there are UFOs, everybody know that? Yeah. Well, somebody's flying those things. I kind of think it's an alien, and so. If aliens exist, and they do, you got to have your head in the sand to think that we're the only people in the universe, right? Well, what are they doing? Why do they want this Earth? Why are they here trying to hybridization? I think there's a hybridization program going on. There's a lot of documentation of different things like that going. And alien abductions and stuff like that is, strange stuff. And we're all strange people, right?
Some more than others. I'm looking out of here at old Titsy McGee with the hat on. Good Lord. If you need some whole milk, you can just lean over the counter.
Well, I want to thank Toby for inviting me here. This is great, Toby. I live over here in Sequim.
Yeah.
I do, and it's just a great. By the way, happy birthday! Did I say that?
I
it's
know.
His birthday tomorrow. By the way,
27. It's so rough. I know.
Y'all got to come back tomorrow and join the party.
Oh, my
We're going to be
goodness.
here, and
Right.
everybody gets to wear a costume and have fun with Toby.
Some of it's going to be raw on my hiney, I know. Okay, so you started to see because I know a little bit of your story here, so I'll just cheat a little bit and fill people in. You, in the sounds, not only in your book, but you explain also of these anomalous things that happen as far as like, it sounded like the whole camp, your elk camp high up in the Sierras was getting torn down. And that may not necessarily have anything to do with Bigfoot as far as people are concerned, but when you get invested in this phenomena here, this paranormal stuff starts to pepper its way along with the phenomena. I call it like a potpourri paranormal thing. And so this mimicry quality to them, is it just mimicry, or are they eliciting something else?
I think they have superior vocal abilities, more so than we do. We have 2 vocal cords. I think they have more than that. That's what accounts for the very unusual sounds that we had up there. It's been shown by the University of Wyoming that their their frequency goes way above what we can do as humans, goes way below what we can do as humans, which suggests infrasound and ultrasound, but also is within our range also, which gives them a mimicking ability. But they have a language. We've determined that by the cryptolinguist study. He was 30 years retired as a cryptolinguist from the Navy. He got a hold of this by accident, and he started studying these things, and he transcribed a language within these sounds that we've recorded. We recorded them mainly from 1971 through 1976, and those sounds have been established pretty much. But other things have happened up there since then, but I don't even try to record anymore because you don't know what they're saying. It's just transcribed as a language by the human definition of language, which means, that's very important that we understand this, language is a sapient sentence which comes out of my mouth like what I'm doing now, I hope, where I'm talking to you guys in a sapient way. It's not like just communicating. Like all animals communicate, but these things communicate with a language by the human definition language like we have, which means you have to have a hyoid bone here which floats, and it's connected to the brain through the nerves and the tongue, and you can talk like we're talking. Other animals don't have that. I don't care if you're a dolphin or if you're a whale or whatever you are. You can't talk like we're talking right now. And these things can do that, and more so. And I think maybe they have a way of changing. Mm-hmm. And by the way, let's get into Tesla stuff. I like the quantum physics aspect of this. That's where my last book goes. And you get into that, and you get into everything's a vibration, frequency, or energy. And if you think about that a little bit, if these things have the range that I suggest they have, and what I've heard and what's been shown, what can that mean? It means that they can maybe manipulate matter, because if you get the frequency right, you can manipulate matter. And I think that's how the ancients did in the ancient texts. This guy 2,000 years ago used to do miracles, but he used the laws of quantum physics, and he said we can do the same thing, which means humans have not been shortchanged with all this attributes. We just haven't learned how to access them yet. So that's where I go with my thoughts anyway. And as far as that sound goes that you was talking about, our camp being tore apart, well, yeah, you heard the barrels being messed with, which we packed in with mules. You heard all these things being scattered around out there, and you look out there later out of our shelter, and nothing's changed. So I don't know how to explain that other than they either hypnotized us all. There were 6 of us, 5 at that time, and either they hypnotized us all, thought we were hearing that, or they was really creating that sound with their vocal mechanism.
Would you agree, Ron, that once you start to experience this stuff, it kind of marks you to experience other things in life as well that are paranormal?
Well, I don't know, but it did. It has.
Right.
So I don't know if some people are just open to that, or if you're marked. But yeah, we had a clicking sound up there, which we heard inside when we were inside the shelter. There was 3 of us up there that night, and this clicking sound moved closer and closer and closer to the shelter. Had the door closed on the shelter, which is just a big log fit between these 2 trees and cabled. And all of a sudden, that clicking sound was inside.
Right.
So if you turn the light on, you don't see anything. You can't see the source of it. But then 2 weeks later, I'm down in the valley irrigating at my property, and I hear this clicking sound following me around out there. I stop and think, well, I got something in my boot, or what is it going on? It's the same clicking sound I had up the camp. Mm-hmm. And I thought, man, that's weird. But something, and also other things have happened down at my house too, which I've heard other people say. But anyway, I asked Bill McDowell, he was my buddy up there that night when the clicking sound was going on. I asked him without telling him about the clicking sound, have you ever had anything happen when you're back down here? He said, yeah, you remember that clicking sound we had? He said, I had that happen to me. So what do you explain it? It's something, I'm going to say this word. You ready? Paranormal. It's just something we don't understand, but I think there's a law behind it. There's a science behind everything. And Al Berry, who, bless his heart, he's passed away now, but he was a master's in science, and he was the investigative reporter that we took into the camp to investigate what was going on. And he wrote a book in 1976, I think it was, and talked about our camp, and that was the first book he co-authored with Ann Slate. And anyway, he said, whatever you do, don't talk about the screwy stuff that goes on up here. He says, don't, or you won't get invited to go to any of these places and talk. And he said, stay with science. Well, he was saying stay with classical science because you got to explain everything. And we think everything's in our little world here that we see. Well, according to quantum physics, the math of quantum physics, there's 11 dimensions, and we live in 3. So we're 3-dimensional embodiments, but if you get out of that, you don't see. Your perception isn't there because the light frequency is right here, and yet all these other frequencies are out there. And if you can catch those frequencies, and that's where ghosts come in, I think. Because I think they're caught between the 4th and 5th dimension.
So
the
what
5th dimension you won't see, by the way.
What makes Sasquatch any different than a ghost? Because the similarities, sometimes just with my own personal stuff, it seems like one and the same as far as.
Well,
how
I think
these things...
ghosts have had an embodiment here, like we do now, and they've passed on because energy can't die, according to Stephen Hawking. And so, if energy can't die, it just changes form. And according to Einstein, the same thing. It just changes form. Energy can't die. So that means, if you're religious, you might call that heaven, but physicists will call that a dimension. And if there's 11 dimensions and we live in 3, what's going on that we don't see? We only see in this light frequency of this certain parameters here. Once you get out of that, you're not seeing it. You don't have the perception of it. But other things exist, and you have to realize that other things are out there. Ghosts are one of them, and I think they're caught between the 4th and 5th dimension. Something's holding them there, either themselves or some other person.
Right.
That's my theory. Theory.
And let's talk about your theory here on Port Townsend, because, being new in town, I've only been here for 5 or 6 months myself. We've had a few trips to Port Townsend. And mostly people say that it's a pretty active town. That's why we kind of chose this environment to do a show about this stuff. But you've lived here before. In fact, you had a house here. So tell us a little bit about what it's like to live here and what you had happen.
Well, we were trying to transfer ourselves from California into Washington. No taxes up here. And we were looking for a home. We stayed here at the castle quite a bit. Loved the restaurant here. Walter was a cook then, and just a great, fun place. We knew the waitress and the chef and all that stuff. So we were looking around. Finally bought this house about 100 yards down here. It's called the Holly Manor. And it's a 4-story house, actually, a big basement, and then 3 stories above it. And I spent a fortune, went through a divorce on that. Other than that, everything's great. But anyway, while we were staying here at the castle, before we bought that house, it was wintertime, and we rented a room up here, and there was a lot of commotion going on from a room next door or somewhere, either above us or beside us. And next morning I asked the clerk how many people we had staying over there. He said, you're the only one that stayed in that wing. And I said, well, what's going on? He said, well, there's a ghost in here. And I thought, well, really? Then I heard the story about the woman jumping out of the room up there. But found out the house we bought after we bought it, Holly Manor down here, in 1936, a colonel from the First World War killed himself in it. And some strange things happened in that house.
Well, before we go, I want to hear more about this.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe people don't know about this woman that committed suicide. Let's go back to that for a second. What happened?
Well, she was the daughter of the one who owned the place.
Okay.
The baker that owned the place, my understanding. And she was in love, and the colonel down there were in love, and they was going to get married. But he found out he had diabetes, and in those days, diabetes was a death sentence. So I guess he killed himself in that house. I didn't know that till after we bought it either. But anyway, she ended up killing herself. That's how the story
do you know how
goes.
she died, or
She jumped out the window up there.
this side? I don't really know what side. I don't know if I'm staying in the right room or not, so I should probably check that out. Yeah. Are we staying in the death room? Okay. All right. But we could probably see where she hit from where we're sitting. All right.
Well, you see that big bloody spot out there?
Right. That's where the rose bushes is.
Kidding.
Yeah. It's dark humor. Come on. All right. All right. So, poor lady committed suicide. You experienced. Was that the room right next to you, or were you in
Yes,
her
it
room?
was.
Okay.
We were told. Yeah.
All right.
And, no one else was in the place that night, so that was interesting.
Okay.
And you would think maybe water pipes juggling or something like that, but no, it was somebody pounding. I thought they was having just a good time, but
Scrabble, folks. Scrabble. They're the hard game of Scrabble.
anyway,
Yeah.
that's that story. And then I've heard numerous stories from when I was talking to the people that worked here about seeing ghosts and seeing things here. So this is a strange castle. It had the Jesuits priests here years ago. You know, this used to be a place for them. And it was the house I had bought was a hospice in the war. And anyway,
And this house is still there, right?
oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Trust me, it's still there. I lost a lot
It
of
must
money in
still.
that
You think
house.
it's still haunted?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But I know the guy, or I suppose it was a guy, I don't know who the ghost was, but it was a friendly ghost, nothing wrong, and it didn't scare us. But one time I was upstairs, and no one was downstairs. It was
Right.
all upstairs, and all the bedrooms are on the second floor, third floor, depending on how you count the basement. But anyway, I heard this big commotion go down there, and I went down there, and my wife's purse, which was on the bench down there, had been moved clear across, had been thrown clear across the room, and no one was down there. So that was kind of weird. But then weirdness is just understanding.
It's part of your regular life. What about your current home with you and Carrie? Do you guys have anything happen at your house you live at now? Because one of the theories is this stuff follows you around, right?
She's got a
Maybe.
hiding back there. She may not want to talk about this. But
Okay.
yeah, we've had a few things happen there, and a woman died there. We didn't know. You know, these people die in these houses, and if they can't transfer, if their vibration frequency doesn't get high enough, you're never going to get out.
Right.
And you got to get out if you want to go to the next dimension, next whatever it is, next. I don't know what's next. I mean, Einstein wouldn't guess, and that's spooky X in the distance. Too.
Spooky action at a distance, yeah.
Anyway, it's yeah.
So you've had stuff happen there.
We've had stuff happen there.
Like what?
Well, a mirror jumped off the wall, broke a big something went through our glass one time, and broke one of the windows. And,
Wait, like a hanging mirror in the hallway? Or
in one of the bedrooms.
and it came off the nail?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and the nail was still in the wall.
Carrie, was the nail still in the wall? Where are you?
It was. So it was a haunted mirror. Well, there's a thing about mirrors too, right? Like, there's
There's a red. That's right. You were.
Well-
Yeah. She's a therapist. and
poor
she was
redheads. They always.
She's a therapist.
Yeah.
She was working on someone that had red hair. And, anybody here with red hair? 6 fingers, double row teeth, anything like that? Just checking.
We're going to talk about that too. Well, let's talk about it now. What he's alluding to are these elongated skulls, and we were going to bring an elongated skull here that Ron has as, it's a mock-up of a child's elongated skull, but since we have a limited amount of time to go over some of this stuff here, I do want to talk to you about these elongated skulls. So let's talk a little bit about it, because Ron, you're an adventurer. You've had the chance to travel to Tibet, South America, Russia. You've
Russia,
been Russia, Mexico. I mean, all over the world, and you're chasing down these legends. You know, you're after the information. And one of the places you had to go was with Brian Forrester and Ellie Marzulli down to South America and Peru and check out this mystery of these elongated skulls. So people are kind of under the impression that most of these skulls are cradle-boarded skulls done by humans to mimic whatever they're mimicking. And that is true, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about something altogether different. So explain to people what exactly you saw.
Okay, there's a lot of them down there. They're all over. You got the Huaqueros, which are grave robbers, and they are digging up graves, and they're looking for jewelry or something like that from these people that were buried. And it's massive, the graveyards down there. It's the cradle board of the world, I think, because there's so many. Now, as you see, you look out over the 7 miles of stuff, you see these mounds dip all over. It's like somebody's out there with a backhoe or something, but it's Huaqueros digging up these graves looking for something special. And when they find an elongated skull, they would take it to a museum and try to sell it privately, and they would buy it. So we was down in Paracus, about 4 hours south of Lima, and seen these elongated skulls, and we did a study on them. I went with L.A. Missoula. My interest was the elongation because a lot of sagittal crests, that's the elongated, are reported on Bigfoots.
Right.
So I wanted to see if there's anything correlating there. And anyway, when we was down there, it was two different times with 2 different scientists on 2 different expeditions, and we weighed the skulls, we checked them. They are not human, not totally. They're hybrid-type beings, which were, when I say that, they have we have 2 parietals, one on each side of our skull with a sagittal suture in between. You guys still hear me? And these things don't have that. It's just a single parietal. And the Incas mimic them for the royalty, the child royalty, trying to get the same attributes we think that these pre-Inca people had, which was...
Keep talking. I'm going to play a video while you're talking.
You haven't been recording this? I didn't have to have my hat on. Yeah, I should have brought one over because I had them... we did get permission down there to unwrap one that was mummified, and it was elongated baby skull, and it was also no sagittal suture, not cradle board. They call it cradle deformation, and those things are all over down there. But the royalty, they bury in another spot, and they don't let you go there anymore. They try to keep the Huaqueros out, the grave robbers, just because of what they're doing. That's Marcia Moore. Marcia Moore. Yeah, she's doing quite remarkable work on those things. I went down there with them, and we were unwrapping these skulls, and actually went into some tombs also, and pulled out some bones. We put them back though, but we got permission to study them, weigh them, and all that. And they're about 30% larger, more brain mass than we have. And yet, when the Incas cradle boarded theirs, they didn't get more brain matter. They just got elongated skulls, which we would get if we did it. They only did that with their youth, the royalty youth, I should say. And anyway, they also had 2 little pinholes in the back of their head, which don't have any idea what that was all about. But
yeah, these holes are really super weird. I mean, it almost looks like little nasal passages in the back of your skull. They're super tiny, but they're not indicative of anything human.
Right. Don't know what that was about. But they are, we think, responsible for the megalithic structures which you see in all over down there in Cusco, and we don't let that Pandu. That's where you get on the train to go to Machu Picchu, whatever it is. And it's just 100 tons of rocks been moved up from miles away, quarried from miles away, and put up on these big mountains, and put so uniquely together, like a jigsaw puzzle. No mortar.
Right.
How do you do that? I mean, we couldn't do that today, I don't think. And Just how they moved them, how they did all that is quite the mystery still.
Well, so
I think they did it with sound vibration.
sound vibration, and what about tools? Do you think they had ancient tech?
They didn't. We checked the Incas didn't for sure, because the Incas want to take responsibility for that, but the Incas didn't do it. They didn't have the tools, and we know that. Brian Forster's researched that thoroughly. He's written books, Inca Tours, I think he's called.
Right.
But anyway, he's the guy to go to down there. He knows more about that area than the locals do.
Yeah, one of his theories is that the Incas discovered these megalithic machined structures from these folks here, and then they came along and they basically adapted over the top of these structures. So it'd be the equivalent of someone finding, a Hilton Garden suite, and building on top of it their rough little attempt at, doing some kind of crude form of architecture over this masterpiece. So that was his theory. I think it's probably the right theory. If you look at where the megalithic stones are without mortar and then what's built on top of them, it, very difficult.
Oh, it's amazing. If you ever get a chance to go down there and see that, it's just what they've done is just phenomenal. You can't imagine how or why.
Right.
Unless it's, who knows why. I mean, I don't know why.
So there's tests that are done on these skulls recently as far as where the male side of these genes
Yeah, the
may come
mitochondrial DNA, which is the maternal side of these things, supposedly came out of Turkey, Siberia area, and not Siberia, but Turkey, Syria area. And it showed that it was from there, but now you got a culture over here on the other side, another clear across the water, the Atlantic, with the same, that's where they came from.
The Black Sea, is that right?
Well, the Atlantic.
Yeah.
They went clear to South America from over there. So either it happened when the continents were together, or they had a way of transporting, or they had the same technology. I don't know, but the maternal DNA was shown from there. But you also got the DNA from more recent, some Bigfoot stuff.
Well, is there any similarities between the discoveries of those skulls and what happened with the Sasquatch DNA debacle?
If you can find the nuclear DNA, which is the male counterpart, that would solve a lot. And so far, it hasn't been determined what that is, because it's unidentified, and that's out of 224 billion samples in the gene bank.
Right.
They can't match it. So if that's the case, and that is the case, that's why classical science are given these DNA things a thumbs down, because it doesn't fit into the parameters of classical science. Anyway, it's quite interesting to look at. But you've also got the newer one, which Melba Ketchum, did that first one, and she got her written up bad. She just dropped out of the whole scene because she said it was not contaminated. But as soon as they find out there's a human side to this thing on the maternal part,
right,
they say it's contaminated, and therefore it's got to be a hoax or wrong, contaminated, whatever. So she just dropped out of the scene. But then you got the one expedition that National Geographic sponsored up in Bhutan, 17,000 feet in the Himalayas. That was done in 2014, and 2 years later, the geneticists came back and said that the maternal side was 99% human of this Yeti track, they think it was, of 17,000 feet. They see these barefoot tracks, and they took the eDNA, which is environmental DNA. They took it out and found that it was human, 99% human. And still, they can't determine the nuclear part,
right,
the male counterpart, which falls into alien intervention into the human genome, or into any genome, in the genome of a primate. That's why you don't discount anything these people tell you, whether it's a wolfman or whatever, because you don't know what's out there that you're not seeing. You just only see within your parameters, within your light perception, and that puts us in our three-dimensional environment that we live in.
One thing, just going back real quick to the skull here, you told me, and this blew my mind, is that there is elongated skulls found in utero, mummified.
Yeah.
So that should be a game changer, right? Because that's not cradle boarding in utero. So talk more about that.
That's it. You just said it.
Okay. All right. No, but I mean, that's really...
Well, you find in the womb of a woman, they
Right.
hadn't cradle boarded. I mean, that'd be quite a feat, wouldn't it? So they're naturally elongated, and that's important to know because so many people say, well, the Incas did that, the cradle boarded,
Yeah.
like the Egyptians did. Well, yeah, they did, but that's not what those skulls represent.
So what's the big holdup? I asked Marcia this question here too. We're not talking about a cryptid. We're talking about something. Let's just use the United States. They could own this story and tell it themselves. I mean, they could own the byline of how to tell this part of history. We have the skulls. It's not a cryptid. We have the scientific evidence. Why the mystery? What?
Good question. Why? Everybody here believes that everything the government tells you is the truth, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, everything's true. There wasn't aliens here either till just recently. I think they keep it concealed because they keep you dumbed down. They don't want you to know what's really going on. And anybody that's experienced the weirdness around some of this stuff will understand what I'm saying right now, and that's that there's things going on we just don't know about, and that's because the government conceals it. I mean, all the giant artifacts that's been taken away from the Lovelock skulls, which I've been to 4 times, those skulls, you can't see them anymore. You can't see the giant double row of teeth. I got a picture of one that was taken 40 years ago before they took it away. And they take those things away and they hide them, and they don't want you to know. And any university that wants to study it, or any classical scientist who wants to get out of his box, the classical box, is going to lose his tenure, lose his reputation with academia. It's hard to break that silence that's being kept from us.
Now, in the Lovelock Cave case, they actually chipped away. They removed the handprints too, didn't they? I mean, they were visible at one time, and somebody came in and chipped the handprints off. Is that the story?
I was there. I mean, I seen the handprints. Went back a couple weeks later with L.A. Missoula because he wanted to see them. They've been clipped off. I don't know if they were chipped off, washed off, or how they got off. But I don't know if it's a handprint. It might just be an inference, which means it looked like a handprint. It was
Right.
huge. And of course, the Lovelock Caves, if you're not familiar with what that is, the Paiutes were warring with the hairy,
Red-headed giants.
red-headed, cannibalistic giants. And they rounded all the Paiutes got together and went together and drowned these guys into this cave, Lovelock Cave. Put a fire there, smoked them out, and as they came out, they killed them, supposedly. And that's the Paiute story. And it's in Sarah Winnemucca's book, and she writes about it. And now you'd ask the BLM, which I wrote to them, and they said there's no giants ever been found there, just big people. Well, 8 foot tall is a big person.
That's a big person, yes.
So anyway, BLM hiding it. They got to. They're a government agency, in a way. So this stuff gets hidden from us, and we just have to understand that because we're not being told everything that exists. And there's a lot existing. I think the government knows about Bigfoot. I'm quite sure of it. I just wrote a foreword for a man named Shane Land. He's going to come out with it before the year's out. And he's a physicist, or excuse me, it's a PhD, and he's written a book that he took off of my book, which is Quantum Physics, Quantum Bigfoot.
Right.
And his is called Bigfoot something else. And anyway, it's very compelling because he gets into the government. He was in intelligence in the military, and he knows how all this stuff's working, and he really gets into it good. And I'm appreciating the honor of writing the forward to that.
Have you ever been contacted by a government official, Ron, in private?
Not that I know of.
No one's ever introduced themselves to you? And
No Men in Black has got me yet, so I guess I'm not close enough to whatever's going on.
But you had government interested in your sounds. I mean, Scott may have been retired, but surely Scott has connections to people that are still connected in the military. So that's never reached back to you?
No, it hasn't. Scott Nelson's a cryptolinguist that
Right.
transcribed the language in these sounds.
Right.
And he doesn't know what they're saying. I wish I knew what they were saying because that one night I was interacting with it. I was able to record it. They were definitely trying to ask me something. I have no idea what it was, but I wish I knew.
Has
A lot of
anybody not heard these sounds before? Does anybody not familiar with what Ron's talking about? Yeah, if you're not, You have your CDs back
I
there.
do, yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to hear them, you can probably find them on your phone somewhere. But just in short, explain what we're talking about vocally. They sound like what?
What do they sound like?
Yeah. I mean, does it sound like, it sounds not like monkeys as much as it sounds like kind of Euro-Asian.
It's a gibberish. It's
Yeah.
similar to what Albert Ostman spoke of. He was the guy who got kidnapped supposedly by a Bigfoot in 1924. John Green, he's deceased now, but John Green interviewed him in the 50s, and he said he was in Tobago, Canada. He got carried away in a sleeping bag and was held captive by a Bigfoot creature and a woman, Bigfoot, and two adolescents. There was four of them there. And he said they were gibbering amongst themselves. And if you ever want to read that, it's in The Apes Among Us by John Green.
Right.
And I went explored that one time with Peter Byrne and Al Berry. We flew up there in my plane, and we researched that whole area, trying to find the bowl that he said he was kept in. We had a helicopter on standby over in Camel River, and we was going to drop in over there and look for the artifacts. Because he escaped by giving them one of them his chewing tobacco.
Right.
Because they seen him putting the chaw in his mouth, and they thought this must be good. So he gave him a dose of it, and a guy got sick that was guarding him, and he took off. And he describes everything to a T, how he got out of there. He showed where he seen Mount Baker and what he was crossing here and where he came out and all that stuff. And he was quite compelling, quite interesting to. I mean,
Right.
Because everybody believes the story because it was he was too detailed to just made it up. But so anyway, the gibberish is just that. It's gibberish. You don't know what they're saying. They talk very rapidly. They move very fast. When you see one, they're just like a streak going through. And I've only seen one once. That was at our camp, and that's when I was recording. So people say, well, if you don't see what you heard, you don't know what made that sound. Well, that was true with Al Berry, because he never got to see what was making the sound, but he certainly got some recordings that were good.
Right.
And we were all getting good recordings. But anyway, this one I seen made that big, what they call the samurai cry, big scream. And that's when I seen him running down to the other two, adolescent and a female down here by the creek. And me and Bill McDowell were there, my friend. We were the packers. We packed horses and supplies in with our horses and mules and getting ready for hunting season. We were hunting then. I don't hunt anymore.
I want to ask you this question here, and I don't know if you're going to tell this story, but I'll ask you to tell it. Let's close this interview up with the story. You're up in the High Sierra camps with Scott. You're packing in. You can't get into the camp there. I'll just kind of give the bullet points. You end up breaking some ribs because your horse rolls. You have to go back to the base camp. Your ride hasn't come yet. The whole effort is scrubbed. So there you guys are at the base of the Sierra Mountains waiting, I believe, for your daughter to come back. And as you're waiting there, you're convalescing. The horses are all tied up. Take it from there, because there's some real weirdness that happened there.
It's a weird story.
Yeah.
It's a long story, so I can't make it what it is. But yeah, I was on a horse that I thought was supposedly trail ready. I gave Scott Nelson the good horse that I usually ride, and so he didn't get thrown. I did. But the trail was very imposing to get up there. It was very tough, and it takes a good mountain horse to make that trip. But anyway, I got thrown. He nursed me back down. I had a broken rib or two, and went around to where my daughter was camped out, and about 12 miles away around this mountain area. But yeah, that morning she saw a Bigfoot run across the little area there. She jogged me a little bit and said, I just saw one out there. My granddaughter was with her, Wendy, and I got pictures of some of this stuff, because it's kind of a really compelling story. But,
Right.
Anyway, she thought sure enough Wendy would see the thing, because Wendy, they'd been bothered all night that night in their tent. Scott knows it, so the tent. And the thing was running towards where Wendy should have been, where Wendy was. We asked Wendy, or my daughter did you see anything when you were over there? And she said, yes, there's a big white wolf come right out in front of me, and just stood there and looked at me, and then ran up the mountain. And that's as far as I can go with that because that's weird. But if they can manipulate energy like I think they can, like I think anybody can if you just learn the frequencies, if you can manipulate that, you can change, and that's where the skinwalker wet wrench comes in. So don't discount the weirdness that you hear because you don't have to believe it, but just don't discount it. Just keep it in your head. It'll all come together maybe sometime. But anyway, we found the trackway of this thing, and it was these things were leaving tracks. This thing was leaving really deep tracks, and they just stopped. And I've heard for years, I've interviewed people for years, and they say that they see these things disappear. Well, how can something just disappear? It doesn't disappear. It goes out of our perception. We only see here. Everything's out here. And so that kind of brought it personal to me because I seen a trackway disappear. I looked up in the trees, could have jumped up there, could have went to a boulder over there, could have jumped over into brush over there. It didn't go anywhere. The tracks just stopped. And anyway, you get into quantum physics and you find out that our density weighs and it's got mass and we will make a print, but energy won't do that. So somehow I think with their vocal mechanism, which is very, very unique, they are able to transfer matter to energy. And that's bottom line, what I got to say. And that's physics.
Okay, tell them what happened to your horse, though.
Oh, the horse.
Yeah.
Oh, God, the horse.
I mean, this part.
We had them all tethered separately, but same area. And yeah, the horse was on her back, all four sticking straight up. And I thought she was dead because you don't see a horse like that ever. I've never seen one like that anyway. And anyway, she was just laying there with all fours up sticking straight up. What a photograph that would have been. But I didn't feel like taking a picture. I didn't even think about it. Because there's so much going on that night. A lot went on that night. And but all that day, we were all day trying to get up to the trail, and something kept messing with us. And finally, the cap on it all was when the horse threw me, and I broke my ribs. And that made us, that was 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we weren't even halfway there. So.
Well, Scott told me, too, that you guys brought, like, Jane Goodall-style rubber balls.
Oh,
and that night, he was woken up to the sound of rubber balls bouncing around the forest.
Yeah, he needs to tell that story, because I didn't hear that.
Yeah. And then he wakes up, sees this horse, legs sticking straight up, like rigor mortis style between a tree.
Yeah.
It's like in a trance or something.
I don't know how, really. She wasn't dead.
No. Was that the horse that threw you? Huh? Or was that a different horse?
No, that was the horse he was riding.
Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
Yeah. Your good horse.
The good one.
Right.
Yeah.
It's never been the same since. All right. Well, Ron, I appreciate you coming today. This has been exactly the way I planned it with you. And thanks for talking to everybody here. If you have some questions for Ron, he's going to be back at his table, and hopefully he can stick around for a while. But thanks, buddy, for talking to us all.
Well, thank you, Toby.
All right, Ron Morehead. Watch your step there, buddy.
By the way, if you see me wobbling, it's I haven't had too much drink. I had brain surgery 2 years ago.
Right.
Left my balance nerve a little off, so be careful when I'm getting close to you.
No pushing Ron around here.
No pushing me.
Yeah. All right. There we go. Okay, we're gonna go right into our next guest here. Sarah, are you in the house? She's talking over there. Oh, leave it to a psychic to be talking to somebody. My goodness. All right. So while Sarah Nash is getting herself ready here, Sarah Nash is a local to town here. We just met each other a couple months ago. She's also been a representative of the LAPD and as a psychic medium. So she has some really interesting history with working with law enforcement in a capacity that's highly unusual. She's also worked here at the castle. So you can imagine she has a few stories to talk about, and we're going to talk about that. Local legend psychic medium, Sarah Nash, come on board. Yes. There's Sarah, and this is her.
I was supposed to get a heads up on this, so I could put lipstick on.
Oh, dear. No, you're good. You're good.
All right.
Everyone say hi to Leah Rose.
Leah,
Yeah, she's kind of like she needs attention and love.
come on. Let's check out your mic here and see how you
right.
sound. All right. Go ahead and bring it up if you need to, because
Oh, solo mio, amigo
I love it. It's like an Enigma video here with your hood on. All right. Let me see how that sounds. Just a little bit closer. There you go. You can bring-
Hello? Hello?
There you go.
Okay, how's this?
That's perfect.
All right, because I'm not going to sit on this chair like this all.
Okay. You can move it however you like. And make sure you don't fall off the back there.
I won't fall off. I
You're
won't.
right
I
by
won't.
the. Okay. You're good. Simmer down.
worries so much.
And she's close, is she not? Yeah. Okay. She's.
Can
really-
everyone hear me?
Yes. Yes, that's good. All right. Sarah, welcome to Strange Brow Radio. This is our second interview together. But we
Look at all these happy people. The food here is really good, isn't it?
It is exceptional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Very
is
much
really
so.
good.
All right, so tell people a little bit about yourself and not only the work that you've done, locally here, but you worked for law enforcement and you also were here at the castle as an employee. So tell people what you do and your intuitive abilities, and then we'll get to this beauty right here.
Sure. I wasn't sure where you wanted me to start.
Yeah, well, let's to give people a little bit of a backstory of who you are.
Okay. Well, I am technically deaf. All right. This ear here is just decoration, and is it? Are we
You're
good?
good,
Are
yeah.
we good? Okay. So I really believe I'm a little bit with Ron on this. Well, actually, I'm a lot with Ron on this. I'm more of a mentalist before I'm a psychic. I am a scientist before anything else. When I worked for federal government, and I'm not supposed to say what it is, but you can come up with the three letters.
Okay.
And the LAPD. They don't call us psychics, they call us consultants. So when they reach a dead end, they will reach out, and because they come to a place in a case. Hello?
That's better.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So they reach a point in a case, and it happened, when I say they, I mean investigators. And these are private investigators, these are detectives, and these are law enforcement officials who get to a place where, this is a science. So they call people like me. And my specialty is as a rescue medium. I tend to have a lot of success with finding those who have died violent deaths by either accident or as a homicide or as a suicide. So I go in, and I've had some really excellent and beautiful opportunities to speak to the departed. And one of the funny stories I have is when my father passed away, I was with him. I was with him for 3 days as he was getting ready to pass over to the other side. And when I got home, I was really upset. And I was talking to my husband, and my husband reminded me, he said, "Yeah, honey, you can talk to the dead." I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's right." So I rang my dad up on the hotline, and he was there. And it was one of those moments, too, where you have these times where it's like it applies to everybody else, but not yourself. It's like I can do what I do for other people, but not myself. And that's why I'm really, really fortunate to have the friends that I do in my life. And that's one of the things that I think is incredibly important for people like me, to be surrounded by people who will support you. And so in this business, and I know we have this room here with people who are not necessarily woo-woo, but we are researchers. We are investigating things that... No!
It looks great.
So, Tobe, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the work that you're doing with Strange Brow Radio, and thank you for having me here.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here at Manresa, because I truly believe that there is, and it's not just that I believe, I know that there is an interdimensional, it's got to be some sort of energy, frequency, and vibration that people like me, connect to. And going back to being deaf, I was deaf. I mean, as a little girl, I have 33% of my hearing in this ear. And this ear, like I said, is just decoration. And people thought that I was, well, not, they thought I was really disabled. Hi.
Keep talking.
They thought I was disabled as a child until they actually realized that I couldn't hear. So I was actually taught how to speak when I was taught how we were not allowed to use sign language. So I don't know sign language, but I learned how to speak with and a British. She was a British speech therapist, and she was also a midget, and it was beautiful. So, I that is why I can speak the way that I do, and I try to find the words. But every once in a while, you'll see me kind of like drifting off. I'm like, what?
Why weren't you allowed to use sign language?
Well, it was I'm 54 years old, so it was what, 1970. And my parents, well, not so much my father, but my mother. I was adopted, by the way, and I found out who my biological family is. But yeah.
Was that a religious thing, or I'm trying to figure out?
No, it was pride. It was.
We
had
don't want to have.
Yeah, we don't want to have a
don't
disabled
show
child.
people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's.
Wow.
It was a very kind of just. It was not okay to be disabled in any way, shape, or form, and so I went actually to Montessori school to learn how to speak. That's why I can actually really mimic a British accent really well.
Can you? All
The
right.
rain in Spain fools me in the plain.
Now, wait a second. Now, last time, well, I don't know if you want to get into this here, but we mentioned it last time you and I spoke about how you disappeared for a little while, too, in the foster care system. And
Yeah.
if anybody doesn't know the story about kids that go missing, especially inside the system, and then they kind of are reintroduced into society, have you uncovered anything new about where you may have disappeared to and what kind of foster care system you were? No.
Well, here's the very interesting thing. I'm actually in therapy right now. Thank you.
Yay.
Round of applause.
Yes, well done.
To try and get in touch with some of my missing memories. There are no pictures of me that exist between the age of 6 to 12. Like, I just disappeared. I really did. And I have little bits and pieces of memory here and there. But I really believe, with all my heart and soul, that I was part of a government program. I have a lot of memories that don't make any sense. And in fact, one of those, my husband, who was at an English boarding school for, 3 years? 4 years? Hey, Peter?
Hey,
Yeah,
Peter.
I told him about the boarding school that I went to when I was 9 in Michigan. And I explained it to him, and I said, yeah, it was the greatest experience of my life, and I have these really layered memories that don't make any sense. And, well, they don't make any sense now. I thought they made sense.
Well, what kind of weird memories?
Well,
Visuals? Like you
yeah,
have
visuals,
flashes?
yes, and they're bucolic. They're almost too perfect. I have this memory of sitting with a bunch of my friends in a greenhouse in Wyandotte, Michigan. It was in the summertime, and we're all sitting there, and we're crushing cherries with our feet. I mean, and there's these layered memories, but I also have memories of firearms and being places that they don't make any sense at all. It's terrifying. I have, and I'm not going to say them out loud right now because I don't want to traumatize people, but a lot of them have to do with a lot of violence, some
Okay.
serious violence, and it's not pretty.
Okay.
It's-
And you're able to differentiate that from memory?
I am now.
Yeah. Okay.
But what I was bringing up, when I was explaining to Peter about my boarding school experiences, he said he kind of kept it to himself, and he was like, finally, he said, that's not a boarding school, honey. I don't know where you were, but that's not a boarding school. And that was the one of the building blocks to stepping into what really happened to me. Nobody in my family, my adopted family, knows where I went. My mother, my adopted mother, her name is Florence Thompson, and all of this is, you can find this information. But there are things that don't make any sense. For example, my 6th grade teacher, her name is Mrs. Callahan. She passed away, we just found out. But I also have a friend who had the same teacher, and she was in a different school in a different place, and we just found her obituary. It was, and I remember going to Montrose Elementary School. If I was in 6th grade, it didn't happen, and the school was not formed until 1984. So I have very specific memories and very specific names of places, but it's not possible.
Right.
So I'm not making it up.
Right.
I mean, I actually
There's a
have it
paper trail.
written down.
Yeah.
It's there. And so my private investigator, who found out who my biological family is, she also pointed out that my records disappeared in 1973. Well, everybody knows that all of the MK Ultra records disappeared in when? 1973. All of my birth records, everything.
Well, explain what MK Ultra is for people that don't know.
Well, MK Ultra is a program that the CIA denied it was in existence, but they were using children and people for government, I don't know, experiments. Experiments, basically, with drugs and mind control.
Right.
It's sort of like that movie, like Men Who Stare at Goats and stuff like that. And I'll have to tell you, I was completely, absolutely just like, MK Ultra, please, come on, it's conspiracy theories. But when my memories started coming back to me, I was like, oh my God, I'm one of those freaks. Like, how is this possible? How could I like fit into that niche? But, you know, without going into a lot of like deeply personal things, which you can on my website if you wish to, cosmictriage.com. But I've been very good at, I think, interdimensional work. Like, I can cross dimensions with people when I sit with them and I work with them, and I think it's a gift. And I don't know if they gave me drugs when I was younger or something.
Well, did you know you were different before these missing memories came along, or were you different after?
I've always been weirdo.
Yeah, but as far as like them possibly.
No, always. I knew that I've always
So
been.
you have memories before this missing time, age 6 and below.
I have so many layered memories,
Yeah.
which is one of the reasons why I really, for quite some time, I thought I was going nuts. I really did. I just didn't make any sense. It was terrifying.
Is that common for psychics and mediums to think that they're going crazy?
I don't know. I really don't know. I think that there's a point for the ones that I have associated with that I would say that are. Here's the thing. I don't hang out with a lot of psychic people. It's like, you know, everybody who thinks they hear it's. I knew that it was my Aunt Edna when the phone rang. I don't know. All I know.
Come on now, you guys don't hang out online together like on the same Facebook page. I mean, you must have the same chat rooms that you guys all hang out in, right?
No.
No?
No.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know.
Is it?
I don't. Maybe others do. I have a really good group of friends that are extraordinarily gifted. In fact, a couple of them are here right now, and we all have our own abilities to move energy, to create the ability for. I mean, some can hear. So that's clairaudience, and some can see, and that's clairsentience, and being able to see the dead and talk to the dead, and even interdimensional creatures that I believe absolutely exist. Do you want to know my Bigfoot story? Do you want to hear my Bigfoot story? This is funny. Like, because I don't believe anything until I actually see it. Right? It's like I was driving home from California, and so I was tired. Right. And that's important. It was in the middle of the afternoon. It was right at that twilight hour, that golden hour, and I was up on the 101, right, Peter? And so I was coming up around the Hood. It was not over the Hood Canal Bridge, but what's that area?
You were down south of Quilcene
Yeah. Brennan, thank you. Woo, Brennan in the house. And so I'm driving along, and I'm not going to give you the backstory, but trust me, it's good. I'm in this like little rental car, so I look up, and there's this, what I thought was like a bear, like a big grizzly bear or something that was like cross-legged, was like holding on to the branch above me.
Yeah.
It's like, you're driving on, and you kind of look up, and I'm like, well, its head turned. And it was like it would look like humanoid. And the first thing I'm thinking of is like, that's really weird. That was like a sloth. It's because its fur was like orange. It was like shaggy and orange. So I was like thinking, it's a mangy bear. My brain was trying to figure out what this thing was. It was like literally its legs and arms were crossed on the branch over the road. And I mean, it had to have been big because, as it was like it was over the entire side of the road where my car was going through. And so I'm like looking at it, and when it whipped its head around and it looked at me, I'm thinking sloth, orangutan. What is that? So I thought to myself, I should probably stop at the ranger station, because there's a ranger station down there. And I was thinking I should probably stop and let them know that there is a mangy bear hanging over. No, really, this is what I'm thinking, right? I knew I saw something. I wasn't sure, and I'm thinking, well, there's a lot of weird people out here. Maybe they have somebody came up from Costa Rica, their pet sloth got away. I don't know.
Nice reach.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I just, So as I drove by the ranger station, I realized that it was closed, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll get home.
Right.
I live here in Port Townsend in Cape George, and I thought, okay, I'll make a note of it, because this is it could be dangerous. There's a bear hanging over the road,
Right, with hands and a face and.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but I mean, it was brief, all right.
Yeah.
But when his head turned, or her head turned, I don't know, its head turned, and it was completely hairless, and I could make out it was very humanoid. It truly was, but more like.
It was a brief encounter.
Anyways,
though.
so
Yeah.
I get home, and I'm unpacking, and it's like, hey, Peter, I haven't seen him for a week or so, 7 days or something, but I'm like, oh, by the way, I need to call the ranger station because there's a rabid bear. He's like, what? So I tell Peter, what I've seen. I'm like, I'm like, yeah, it's like right before the bridge, and da 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 da. And he went, oh, honey, no, that was Bigfoot. Like, what? What? No. So that's my Bigfoot story, because I didn't believe. I was like, yeah. Okay.
What is the principle where you touch stuff and you get a sense of it? What is that called?
Being that's psychometry.
Psychometry.
Yeah,
So-
I'm very good at that as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
picking up images.
Have you held like a Bigfoot track and got a reading?
No, I have not. I've never done that.
What do you
Should I
have-
do that?
Yes, you should.
Should I do that? That would be
Or
kinda
have you
cool.
ever held
I've
a
actually never
hair
done that.
or anything like that to see?
No, I've never done that.
What's your impression about what they are?
I think they're interdimensional creatures that are used as transport devices. Myself, when I've talked to other people, I think that they can actually inhabit the consciousness. I really think, and I'm, okay, yeah, whatever, I don't care. The thing is that I believe that a consciousness can inhabit them, and they are used as transport devices, as organic transport devices, from dimension to dimension.
Whoa.
I mean, the more I've thought about it, the more I've talked to other people about it, I believe that they are here, and they just wait basically for the kinder, gentler, far friends of ours to, if they need to get from point A to point B, how are they going to do that safely?
No.
This place was quarantined and psychically, but
Now, I might have some Bigfoot evidence behind this curtain here. It'd be interesting. It's just on the spot.
I think
to
it
give
would,
you
yeah.
something that was given to us in Cottage Grove. So I may grab that at the end of the interview here and have you do a live psychometry reading, because
Okay.
I've done it once with another psychic before who was a skeptic, and it.
I'm really skeptical too. Everybody who steps in front of me, I'm like, sure, you saw a ghost.
Okay. Let's talk about ghosts, because you worked here for a bit. You know this
Yes.
castle. You have some
Oh my
stories.
gosh, yes.
So tell people a little bit about what you did here and what you saw.
I want to start with the first thing of the dude who hung himself upstairs.
Okay, what do
up
you know?
in the turret. Like, I think it's like actually right above us.
Mm-hmm. Someone's staying in that room. Who's staying in that room in the back? All right. You're
All right.
screwed. All right.
Third floor, super haunted. I gotta tell you, man. Woo, did you see the lights?
Are you picking up on anything right now here?
Oh, yeah.
What are you picking up on?
Yeah, nothing. Oh, yeah, nothing.
Okay.
No, it actually, I'm picking up on the spiked interest in what people are experiencing, and there's a lot of human emotion that here. One
Yeah.
thing I want to point out, and this is really important. Thanks. Give me just a second here.
Sure.
When you have a
Like I
large,
could stop you. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, you're good. Yeah, boom.
All right. When you have a large contingent of people together that are of a like mind, all right, there is what creates a vortex here. And not just here, but anywhere you are. And this is how archonic and discarnate energy comes through. I do have a master's degree in theology. I went to Europa University, so I got that going on. But so I study energy, frequency, and vibration, and I've noticed that the mob rules. When you get individually, yes, we have our individual consciousness, but I am very, very about the unified field theory. I am good friends with Christina Munns, she is a quantum physicist who wrote the unified field theory. She is the author of the unified field theory. And as a result of that, yes, we are separate, but we are one. You know, what separates us from this piece of rose quartz? Molecules, atoms, electrons, neutrons, and you know, the whole, yeah, it's like how we are arranged is different from this little candle, but you know, it's like, how do you remember being a leaf? How do you remember being a tree? How do you remember being a dog or a cat or an otter or a dolphin or a tiger? I was a saber-toothed tiger. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But so what happens is when you get enough people together of a like mind, what happens is this energy forms. It's like a cloud. It's like it's psychic precipitation, condensation. All right. It's like The thing is, though, is that if you have enough people that are gathered as a result of joy, joyful things will happen. If you have enough people gathered together and they are miserable, think about this. Think about the Broadway show Les Mis. It was the longest running. Isn't it still running? I don't know. I should have.
Yeah, I think
It is miserable from the beginning to the middle to the end. And everybody goes and they watch this and they sit there and they sit in the middle of something called Les Mis. So be miserable, right? Be as miserable as you possibly can. Why? Why would you do that to yourself? Because this is how archons gather. Now, I've done some psychic research on this. I mean deep, deep, deep psychic research on this, and I've looked at them. They are ancient or inorganic material that are like etheric. And so it's sort of like saying when you pray, it's like, please, God, help me. And so you send out an energy. It's like, you know, here I am, right? So this material gathers. And it doesn't care. It doesn't care if you're good or you're evil or if you're this or that. It's just like, hey, help me. And so it will gather because your intention is there. And if you have enough of that gathering, all right, it is used as a sponge for psychic energy. And so people talk about the Illuminati. They talk about people who, or groups of people who will it's sort of like they'll stick a psychic straw in that stuff and and suck it out and use it. So they are siphoning off of, that's what the entertainment industry does. All right? This is one of the reasons why they have a lot of the stuff that's out there, because they will siphon off of that energy.
Well, now wait a second. They're in some cases, and this is all conjecture to a point, but they actually siphon off tangible stuff, something called loche.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah.
Can you explain to people what that is?
Well, no, because their heads would explode. Yeah.
Has
do you like
anybody
that?
heard of
I
this?
have that.
Does
that
anybody
bumper
not know
sticker.
what Loesch is? Raise your hand if you don't know what it is. Okay. So psychic energy, the adrenochrome is another word for this. This is fear-induced blood that the...
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, adrenochrome is basically blood that has been infused with fear. So basically, if you're chasing a deer out in the forest and you shoot it and it's scared, I mean, this is just natural. I mean, like hunters know this. It's like you want to sneak up on them and drop him dead. Otherwise, it gets the adrenaline coursing through their veins. It taints the meat in the deer. But if you're a sick psycho and you like to eat babies, but not on Fridays,
Right.
because
Right.
we don't eat meat on
No,
Fridays.
today's Friday, too. So.
Basically, what they do is vampirism. And yeah, they slaughter people.
So
and,
this is where this came from, the idea
Yeah.
that the vampires are bloodsuckers.
Yeah.
It comes from a real place. Do you know that this is true?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So there
Yes,
are
I do.
people out there that are into this.
Yes.
Whether or not it works or not is the other thing.
Oh, it definitely works.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I've seen it. I myself, I can honestly say that I have never,
You've never eaten blood?
I've never.
I didn't know we were going
am
here,
not-
folks. Sorry. The PG version's actually tomorrow. This is...
Not been there, not done that. Didn't.
Okay.
Didn't,
I
yeah.
mean, I'm insanely curious about some of this stuff here to kind of meet people that know something more about it than myself.
It's all real. It's all
Bohemia
real.
Grove is obviously a place of insane interest too to me, and these are one of the things that they say.
Yeah,
goes
it's all
on there.
real.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that.
What about here at the castle? Is there any rituals that have happened here at the castle?
Yes, there have. Yes, there
Is
have.
that why this may be supercharged?
Well, one of the reasons that this place is here, anyways, too, is that whether or not, I mean, it's sort of like dowsing. There is this. This is actually an entrance. There's portals here. There's 2 vortices here. This is an inn, and out by where the cathedral.
Wait, you mean this side of the castle is an
in.
entrance?
Yes, this is the inn vortex, and out by where the chapel area was, that's now the ballroom, is the out. So it comes in and it goes out. Yeah, there's a dual vortex here.
So what have you seen come out? And Peter
It's-
too, right? You've seen stuff?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We may come up to the mic here in a second.
One
but-
of the things, though, that I did want to say with
Yeah.
regard to the guy who hung himself, the monk supposedly who hung himself, which the Catholic Church, my cousin who worked for the diocese, I called him up. I'm like, hey, just on the download, did this really happen? Which he would neither confirm nor deny, so that's a yes. But here's the thing. I did not know, in spite of everything that I've been involved with, I did not know, like, how could I not know this? I did not know that when you hung yourself, quite often you will evacuate your body and, things come out of your body. That's kind of gross.
Right. Yeah. So what?
So, anyways,
Did you pick
when
up
my
on
daughter
that?
was working here,
Yeah.
I asked if I could go upstairs and we could look around and stuff. And so I'm going up there with my daughter and Christiania. Christiania, right? Yeah, she was one of the she did a lot of the PR here
Okay.
a couple of years ago. When the Massey family still owned this. And so I'm upstairs and I'm like walking around and we go into the turret area and I'm like, oh my God. Because there was all this like
You
yuck.
saw.
PG.
Okay.
Yeah, PG. There was yucky stuff on the floor. And I looked, and I was completely grossed out because I thought maybe, I don't even know what I thought. It was that awful. And I'm shrieking. And my daughter and Christiania turn around, they look at me, and I'm like, what the heck is this? That's not exactly what I said. But
Yeah.
what the heck is this?
Right. There you go.
And then it wasn't there. So I knew that something had happened, and I'm looking up, and I'm like, okay, this is where the dude supposedly hung himself. Well, somebody hung themselves there.
Well, that's a part of the record book, right? I mean, people know that a monk hung himself, right?
It's neither been confirmed nor denied.
Wait, really?
Really? Yeah.
But on the website, they show a noose.
Oh, okay. If you read it on the internet, it must
Right,
be true,
right.
right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Has anybody
Only on my website.
Has anybody seen the monk or the priest around here? Has anybody laid eyes on him maybe in the back? Yeah, one person? Okay. And maybe I want to have you come talk about this too.
Yeah.
So
you
what was your
should.
capacity here, Sarah? I mean, you worked
I
at
worked the front desk and I worked the nights. I was on the night shift.
Okay.
Yes.
And you took us down to
The dungeon,
right?
yes.
There's an area, the laundromat, called the dungeon, but it was also a speakeasy.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that because when you know people in Port Townsend, and it's like off the record, folks. But yeah, this used to be a speakeasy during Prohibition because it was actually closed down. This castle here, or the home itself, was closed down for quite a period of time. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on in the basement. And also, I have a good friend who was born here.
Born here?
Born here, yeah.
Wow.
This was actually a hospital for unwed mothers and mothers who, women who were not married and or maybe poor or what have you. But yeah, because the hospital wouldn't take them, the nuns took them here, and this was kind of like an orphanage too.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So wait, it was a monastery, a private home, an orphanage. Now it's a hotel.
Yeah, and it was also a nunnery. The nuns had it before the Jesuits did.
Okay.
Wait.
And it's
Yeah, that was right.
Okay. So describe to people what you've seen, what Peter's seen.
So, well, my husband, who's never seen a ghost until he was here, he would come and he would bring me dinner at night. And one of the evenings, he was sitting down waiting for me to show up in the cafe area where the breakfast nook is. It's underneath the ballroom area next to the library, and you go down. And so he was sitting there, and I saw Babushka Lady often. I called her Babushka Lady because she always had like a scarf around her head, and she always wore a shawl, and she was elderly, and she would shuffle around. I'd see her come out of the elevator and what have you. But anyways, Peter saw her. And I thought that was kind of cool because he didn't really actually know what he was seeing until she just disappeared into the closet that's down there. The door actually opened.
And we're talking like a really small little broom closet.
Yeah.
Like a grand
yeah, it
entry
just
like
didn't
this.
make any sense to him. And so when I came back, I was actually checking somebody in because it was customer service. Customers, got to take care of them.
Right.
It's like, no, I'm sorry, I'm eating my dinner. Can you wait?
Was there a policy not to talk about it here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they really just didn't want us to indulge people too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how hard was that for you? You like to talk.
Oh. No, I was relieved that people would come in and they would start asking because I mean indulging people they're interested, they're fascinated,
Right.
Because you can feel it. How many can feel it when you walk into Manresa? Just show us a hand. When you walk in here, can you feel something just a little left of center?
I want to.
Come on, raise your hands, arms,
Yeah.
arms
okay.
and hands,
All right.
spirit fingers.
And there's
Here
some
we go.
people here with ghost hunting kits with them as well too. So if you're interested in this, we can have a little after party.
Yeah, we should definitely do that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were so many times here that some of the just really, the time traveler.
Okay.
Yeah, the time traveler.
Not you, Darren. Let's
What
talk about.
time is it? Here, we got to go?
No, we're good. No, time. No, you're good. We can go back in time. You saw something, and this may get into what was on the roof, because there's maybe a mystery there as far as this antenna. But what did you see as far as this guy down in this little Babushka Lady area?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not the Babushka Lady area. It's the breakfast nook.
The breakfast nook.
Yeah, come on.
Well, it's not much. Is it really a breakfast nook? It's always dark when I see it.
I don't know. I
Okay.
don't know. I haven't been
Okay.
here for a while. I don't know what they do.
Okay, we'll find out in the morning.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Okay.
So what'd you see down there?
Okay, so it was a dark and stormy night. No, there was a gentleman who'd been staying here for a little while, and so I thought it was this guy. But I also wasn't sure what was going on because we had a rash of homeless people coming in during the winter. And it was my first winter stint, so I wasn't entirely sure. This was right before we sold it listen to me. Right before the owners of the castle sold it in October of, 2014, Peter? Whenever it was that it was sold. But so it was, in fact, it was a dark and stormy night. And it was really late. And I came out, and to this day, I don't even remember what it was that caused me to get up. I think it was because I had a camera. There was a surveillance camera, and if I was just sitting in my room, like reading or something, I could see up on the television. It had like a separation of like 4 to 8 cameras, and I think I might have seen some movement or something. But I came out and I walked down the hallway. Now the overnight room for the front desk people was right behind the front desk. So as I came down the hallway, I saw this man who was sitting right at the front table right there, and he had. The thing is that his briefcase, laptop, was like one of those really old ones. It was really thick, and he was just sitting there, and I could see this like blue glow on his face. But the thing that got me, and here's what I remember the most, is that he was wearing a members-only jacket. Okay? I mean, this is like 2014, it's like 1980s, right? But he had a members-only jacket on, and I remember that because my ex-husband used to he loved his, and I hated it. So that's why I remember that the most. And as I approached him, because I'm thinking, okay, he's wearing an old jacket, he's got an old laptop, this guy's probably homeless, I don't know.
Right, sure. That makes sense.
I'm approaching him very, very cautiously, and I said, can I get you a cup of tea or something? I don't know why I said cup of tea either. I'm sorry, would you like a cup of tea?
So British of you.
I don't know. I was trying to be hospitable. And his head whipped around, and he looks at me, and his eyes get like really huge, and he's like, okay, here's the weird thing. I've just started watching Fringe in the evenings. Like I'm watching the whole series now, and I'm seeing some stuff that's going on there, and I'm like, okay, no wonder people think I'm just making this shit up.
Right.
But he did that thing where he moved very, very quickly. Like it was just like wop, 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 wop. Like you see, like the only movie that I remember seeing that in was Jacob's Ladder.
Like the shaky man
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, and he just started like moving.
Vibrating?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like super fast. And I was like
Right, like the blades in a fan where you see something behind it.
And there was he shut the lid on his not weird, I don't know what the hell it was, and he disappeared. It was just gone. I freaked the F out. Oh my God. That was one moment like I'm Peter, do you remember how awful I was? I think I called him and I was just like, you have to get here now. It was
too much for you. Right?
And I've seen some really, it was so unexpected. There was no glowing blue, because I've had that, but this was just the weirdest effing thing. And he was just gone.
And you still worked here after that.
Well,
it wasn't enough to scare you off.
No.
Has there been anything that's enough to scare you off?
Yes.
What? There has been.
Yes,
okay.
And that was very recent, and that's why I don't trip the light fantastic anymore. I used to do a channeling period 5 days a month for the last 5 years. I would set aside time to do this channeling thing, where I would just download a lot of information and be crazy, and it was fun. And not anymore. No.
Okay, but nothing here happened that was too much for you.
It was. Here's the thing, though. It's like, because you can't wrap your head around it. It's not this tangible thing. It's not like I can reach out and touch a rose quartz crystal skull. And you're still here, and you're still breathing, and you're okay, and you're smarter for it. Mm-hmm. And I'm a demon slayer. That's what I do, man. I go into places and I'll do it. But yeah, there were 2 very, very terrifying experiences here. And the disappearing man was one, and the guy up on the 3rd floor was the other. Yeah, so I was getting ready to bring in. It was very late at night, and the mill workers were coming in because we used to host mill workers, and it was raining. And I figured I'd turn the lights on for these guys before they came, and it wasn't that late. It was like 7:00 or something.
Right.
But so I was just getting around turning on the lights for them so they didn't have to come into, because I was a really good hostess.
The best.
And this guy shows up, and he's standing in the hallway in the open door, and I could hear the water dripping off of his coat. I mean, me hearing water dripping off of his coat, like no. But I did.
Right.
And it was after the fact that I realized I wasn't hearing it. I was
Sensing it.
and experiencing it. But I turned my head, and there's this big giant guy. He's got this like black hat on, like not a fedora, but like an Australian, kind of like it was probably Ron. Ron, was it you? It was probably you, Ron, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, so this guy is standing there, and you could hear the water. I could hear it dripping off of his clothing, and he was just standing there, and that was it was just creepy.
We had a bad vibe about him.
Oh
Like
yeah.
was
No, I
dark
invited him
energy?
to leave. Yeah, I just shouted.
Now,
at
was
him.
that an energy taken on that form, or do you think that was a guy that just had bad vibes?
No, I think it's something that lives here. I think it's here. I think it's attached to this place. I really do. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on here, and all of it's good. However, if you don't, let it get to you, then I mean, countless nights. I mean, 9 times out of 10, nothing's going to happen.
Right.
And this guy's not going to hurt you.
Right.
But he's there. And I had to invite him to leave when I realized he wasn't an actual living, breathing human being and something really nefarious. And that was probably one of the first times I'd actually had to,
Kick some ass?
yeah.
Okay, there you go. I said it for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Tell us about this lady.
So, how many Port Townsend residents do we have
We're
here?
pointing, for the radio audience, we're pointing to a rose quartz skull.
She's 13 pounds. She's life size.
It looks
Actually,
kind
a
of
little
like
bit.
the crystal skulls that they found all over the world.
Yeah.
It's
And she's actually sat with a couple of them, too.
including
Max.
Yes, which is one of the most
And
famous ones.
Shanu Ra.
Okay.
Yeah, Shanu Ra. And, so she actually came from Lila Drake.
Tell people about what people don't know about the crystal skulls. I don't know everything about them.
Well, okay,
what do we know
I can tell you about the
mystery?
crystal skulls.
Yeah.
It's a hoax. The guy from Shasta, he owned a crystal shop out there, and he said, yeah, a bunch of my friends and I got together, and it was back in the 70s, and they were trying to figure out what they could do to drum up interest in crystal skulls, right?
Wait a second. You're saying that the whole crystal skull mystery that Dan Aykroyd is invested in right now? I mean, wait a second. This is supposed to be a big mystery. You're going to blow everybody's mind right now with
Well,
this?
I mean, it's
Okay.
true. I mean, the thing is that there are more than 13. Okay, it's like, which one of the original crystal skulls would you like? I mean, that's what he said to us when we went there. Peter, back me up on this, babe. I mean, it's
Okay.
Yeah. And so the bottom line is that these guys started this hoax as a result of, well, it's like sometimes you get information and what have you, but they were trying to drum up interest in their own crystal business. And so they actually came up with this idea to start the whole crystal skull thing. However, crystal skulls have been in existence for thousands of years. And there are some that are starting to show up that are incredibly powerful because, as we know, radios use what? Crystals to transmit energy. And what do crystals do? They hold silica. Silica holds energy, frequency, vibration. So if you carve something in the likeness of something, it's like, thou shalt have no
Idols.
idols,
Right.
false idols, blah, 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 because there's a reason for that. Yeah. there are entities that become attached to them. And these are helpful entities. These are beautiful entities. And Leah Rose actually, she helps activate the third ray of love. There are 7 sacred rays, chakras, colors, images that come through. But
You're wooing the hell out of this.
I'm
place
wooing
with
the
that-
hell out of you.
with that talk.
I can do it. Yeah. Well, okay. Rainbows.
Okay, rainbows.
Chakras.
All right.
You know, it's like God said He wasn't going to envelop us in.
Did it name itself? Did you name it?
No, actually, she named herself. It was one of those times when you're sitting somewhere and people just said the same thing. It was Leah Rose.
So do you use this as you're doing session with somebody?
No.
No.
No, she.
What would you use her for?
I actually haven't used her for much of anything other than to be an excellent companion when I do meditation work, because she's just been returned to me after a 7-year hiatus.
Oh, why is that?
Because somebody had her.
Somebody good?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you didn't
But
have to cleanse it or anything like
yes,
that?
I did.
You did.
And this is her first time since she's been out on Guy. The first time she was out, I took her with me on Guy TV when I sat with George Norrie and talked about the White Light Express, which is my healing ministry.
Okay,
And
so
so
Gaia
she's
TV is something people can download on
Yeah,
Roku.
you can go to Guy TV and go to Beyond Belief with George
Right.
Norrie. And it's one of the, it was the second year that he was on there, and he asked me to come and sit with him. He's a really great guy, by the way. He's not a CIA agent, I promise you. Art Bell, I loved Art Bell, though, too.
Total
So.
CIA. No, so now can you supercharge something like that? Let's say the ones
She
that...
can supercharge you.
Oh, okay.
She's already supercharged, baby.
Okay.
Yeah. She can supercharge you.
So when they had these hoax skulls set out in places like Tibet
because
and
some of
whatnot,
them
those
are
could
not
be,
real.
Well, they could be supercharged too,
But
right?
they
If
are
they're-
real because they were carved. What is
Yeah.
real? Like, I actually have a little plastic skull, and his name is Liam, and he's got just as much Shazam as some of the other ones, too.
Is that what
because
makes
it's the power of positive focused intention.
Well, that's what a haunted object is, right?
No, a haunted object is haunted.
So what's the difference between supercharging something as a...
Maybe
like you
we're
can
having a
this?
problem with semantics. I can supercharge this for you.
Exactly.
This is the candle of power. Everyone who gazes upon it will be healed, because that's the power of your mind. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there that a lot of people use because they are using you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, it is a matter of semantics here, because I think we're kind of saying the same thing. You're saying focusing intention is the same thing, whether it be good or bad, right?
Okay. Well, here let's sort of take a look at what a Bible is. All right. We'll take a book or something or anything. All right. And we have it's when you say the words "I hate you," all right. It's very pointed. It's like a laser. It comes out and it hits you. Energy, frequency, vibration. When you say "I love you," it's a bigger wah-wah. It's bigger woo-woo. It's softer and it's bigger.
Right.
And it vibrates at a different frequency. I hate you vibrates with laser sharp precision, and it can hurt you, and it like hits you right here. I love you. That's why a lot of people it takes a little while for them to feel comfortable with "I love you." Because it just kind of settles around you, and some people are just not comfortable with that. But they know what to do with an "I hate you." It's like, I hate you too.
Right. Fire back.
Yeah, you know, and so when you talk about supercharging something, it's if you have a holy man, the Dalai Lama, His Holiness, or somebody that you really love. It's like somebody. They were selling a piece of something that Lady Gaga had, or it's like, yeah, Elvis once held this. So it's like supercharged because why?
Right. Like James Dean's Porsche.
Exactly.
There you go. That one is haunted, by the way.
Yeah.
We found that out real quick, Aaron and I did.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I've been to that corner a couple of times.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But you can supercharge these things here with intent. And is it easier to supercharge something with hate? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
It's
yeah.
more powerful?
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
wait
it
a
is.
second. How does that work?
I know, right? You tell me. Yeah, it's pretty heavy, and you've got to work through that. And that's why curses. That's why when you curse something, when you say something, I hate you, or you say something that's negative, it really affects the vibration and the frequency of your cellular being.
Right.
Ron Morehead's wife, as a matter of fact, Carrie, is an incredible. She used to work. She was a body practitioner, and now she works more with energy. But
She's
she
still
will
here?
tell you about the crystalline structure called the fascia in your body, and it is affected by sound and frequency and vibration. Water, it's like Dr. Emoto's work. It's Dr. Emoto.
No.
Does everybody know?
Dr.
Anybody
Oz.
know who Dr. Emoto is here? Okay.
Okay.
Dr. Emoto was phooey. I'm going to say he was an expert but he was a scientist, and what he did is he programmed. He actually took molecular, microscopic pictures of water.
Oh, gotcha.
After
Right.
people shouted at it or
Right.
said negative things to it, or they said loving things to it.
Mm-hmm.
So it would literally change the molecular structure of water.
So it's measurable. This
Yes.
isn't just hooey. This isn't just
No, it's
flute
not.
playing.
And that's the other thing. I truly believe that what I do with tarot, when I sit there with signs, symbols, and images, it's really just a science, because there's a finite amount of possibilities.
Right.
When somebody sits in front of me and says, okay, in spite of, hey, am I pregnant? I don't know. Go to
Right.
CVC and get a pregnancy test. Please, just don't bother me. But there's a finite amount of things that can happen.
Right.
And so when I sit there, I think it has a lot to do with it, how the I Ching works. So I think there's a number system behind it, and somehow I can tap into that. But my
Right,
my
your
mind is
noodle.
capable of wrapping around that. So
Are you, and you have a table back here too. Are you doing readings?
yeah, I'm actually going to do 3-card spreads.
Well,
I
what
call
is
them
that?
psychic sips.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're doing
Or-
tarot readings?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, Peter, my husband, does alchemy stones. And I've known Peter since I was 8 years old, okay? It's a really great story. But he used to do these little doodles. They're like mandalas. And after a while, he actually made me one for our anniversary, because we were kind of broke, and he was like, "Oh, I'll draw on a rock for you, baby." Yes. So,
You swinger, you.
oh my God.
goodness. Wow.
Yeah. And so somebody else saw that.
That's a really weird pickup line, by the way. But
No, we'd been together for a while. It wasn't a pickup line.
Okay.
It was a
Yeah.
tow along line, baby. And because
A
I
ley
love
line,
rocks.
right.
I love rocks. I love them. And so people saw them, and they were like, "Hey, can we have one?" And so he would do that. And it was to mark somebody's birthday or an anniversary or something. And then we had a really big order. Actually, I shouldn't say we. He had a really big order from another friend who wanted him to paint 100 stones for their wedding. That was the first time we actually charged people for it. And so, yeah, he's been meditating, and a lot of symbols and signs and images have been coming to him. We've had Reiki practitioners ask him to do chakra sets. So it's really been expanding.
And you have
now,
these stones all over
yeah.
your house.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, we have them on the
table.
table over there, too.
Right.
Yeah. Buy
So
one.
everything, there's
Buy
stuff
one
for
now. Buy
sale.
two.
Yeah. There's stuff for sale there, too.
Yeah.
So I have some stuff behind the curtain here that I want to bring out, but I think I'll save it for after the intermission. That way I
Okay.
can make sure I have it all set out. But I think we're going to take
By the way, everybody, did you know Tub's birthday is tomorrow?
Oh, yay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you
Thank
coming
you.
to the party tomorrow? You're going to get dressed up and wish him happy birthday.
All right, Sarah. Sarah. All right, everybody, thanks Sarah Nash for coming here. All right. All right, guys. So that's, we're going to take a little 15-minute break here. I got to take these earmuffs off me eventually. And so we're going to do a psychometry reading. In fact, if you have any objects with you that you want to do a psychometry reading on,
after the show, maybe we can do more than these suspected Bigfoot gifts. Feel free to go to the bar, stretch your legs, go for a smoke. It's about a 15-minute break or so. And Darren, where are you at? Darren is going to be in here playing the beautiful theremin Moog. And we're going to play some crazy images here, psychedelic monster stuff. And so let's meet back here in about 20 minutes or so. Stretch your legs, and I got to recharge some batteries.
All right, that was, again, Sarah Nash and Ron Morehead, part one of our Podcastle live from Manresa Castle. And part two will be some eyewitness testimony from Port Townsend local ghost hunting team. I believe a gal by the name of Stephanie, who definitely knew a lot about the castle and Port Townsend and some of its history, and Barb Shoop. And again, the whole thing will be on video for Patreon members. So you go to patreon.com/Strange Brow Radio to sign up for that, and we'll get that up in probably the first part of November. But part two of this will be airing next Monday for regular listeners. We did have, on my way out the door, we were shown a photograph, and this photograph was from last night. Now, we heard the night before about a little boy that had roamed the castle periodically. It still roams the castle as a ghost, I guess. And around 5 in the morning, we heard what sounded like a little boy running down the second floor of Manresa Castle, opening and slamming doors. And I had all sorts of weird, crazy dreams. People were grabbed and poked periodically in the castle by unseen forces. But on the way out the door, checking out, there was a photograph that was shown to me by one of the locals that turned up for the podcast. And there was in front of the door, the night of the masquerade party, a shot taken of the main stairwell heading up to the castle, where there looks like a 12-year-old boy from the 21st century standing there, kind of transparent, dark-haired boy with a red and black shirt on, and behind him is a purple glow of what looks like shoulders and a dark entity coming off of it from the neck and the arms. It's very interesting, and I don't have that photograph to show you yet, but as soon as I get it, I will post that on our website that is still under construction, and I'll put it up on Facebook under the Strange Brow Radio page. But I've just seen it with my own eyes. It's very interesting. There was no children allowed inside the castle on the day of the masquerade party, and certainly everybody was in costume anyway. So this photograph didn't make a lot of sense, and I don't have the entire provenance of who took the photograph and what time and the circumstances, but from what I saw, it's pretty interesting. And so look forward to that as well. All right, that's it. Part one down in the history books. Part two next week. Thank you again to everybody who showed up. And as always, remember, I will see you in the trees.